the CIA turned 75, and in 2011, Leon Panetta was the CIA director, overseeing the raid that led to Osama Bin Laden's death. Secretary Panetta, what did it stand for the US and the CIA?
Ask me the last question again. What did what?
What it represents for the US?
Well, it's an important principle that intelligence should be part of the national security of a country. Obviously, we have the military, we have all of the capabilities of the military, but part and parcel of our ability to have a strong national security depends on intelligence. And so without intelligence, it's very difficult to really not only conduct military missions, but also as president, it's very difficult to be able to make the right decisions for your country. Intelligence plays a very critical mission. And when intelligence came together after 9/11, and we saw what happened on 9/11 with the attack on our country, and almost 3,000 people were killed, innocent people. Intelligence, as well as the military, made the decision to go to war against Al-Qaeda and terrorism. And there were really two missions. One was to go after those that put together the attack on our country and make sure that they would never be able to do it again. And the second mission was to try to make sure that Afghanistan never became a safe haven for terrorism. We succeeded in the first mission. We were able to put together a team at CIA that was able to ultimately find Bin Laden. It was over 10 years that we had been looking for him. We were able to find Bin Laden. We put together a mission with special forces, intelligence and military working together to go after Bin Laden at a place called Abbottabad in Pakistan. We were successful in that mission. And I think what it did was it sent a message to the world that nobody attacks the United States of America and gets away with it. So it was very important to not only the responsibility of intelligence for national security, I think it was also an important message to send to the world that that the United States is not going to allow an attack without making sure that those involved are brought to justice.
Okay, and before being a director of the CIA, you were a member of the House of Representatives. You served under President Clinton, and you were White House Chief of Staff. What did it mean to be a seat in the most critical seat of the intelligence community in the world?
Well, in many ways, I've had the opportunity to serve my country in a number of different capacities. I'm the son of Italian immigrants, and my parents always made clear that both my brother and I owed something to this country for the opportunity that the country gave my parents to be able to not only succeed but provide the American dream to their children. And so, as a result of that, I made public service my career to give back to the country, and I've done it in a number of capacities. And one of those capacities was to serve as director of the CIA. And I think that what I learned from that responsibility was that the intelligence officials that I led are not Republicans or Democrats. They're good Americans who care a great deal about our country and are very professional and very dedicated. And I realized that, being able to lead our intelligence people in not only seeking good intelligence, because that is the primary responsibility, determining what our intelligence is on our adversaries around the world, and what are they up to, and what kind of attacks are they planning, and how do we protect ourselves from those attacks. But we also conduct operations to make sure that that we can protect our country as well. I was very honored to have that opportunity, and then to be able to work with the President of the United States and to other leaders in our country to make sure that they had the very best intelligence we could provide, and really able, as a result of that, to try to guide the decisions that were made. We were in a war on terrorism. When I was at the CIA, we were conducting operations not only in Afghanistan, but in Iraq as well at the time. And we were also going after terrorism elsewhere, particularly in the Middle East. So we had a number of fronts that we were operating on to try to make sure that that we were protecting our country from terrorism and protecting our country from another 9/11 attack. I think I was honored not only by the ability to conduct the mission to go after Bin Laden, but I was also honored by the fact that I think, as a result of intelligence and certainly the military capabilities as well, we were able to prevent another 9/11 attack on the United States.
And how do you assess these 75 years of the CIA?
I think, like almost any agency in government, that the CIA has had its ups and downs. I think initially it began, coming out of the intelligence operations that were conducted during World War II. And those operations were very much on their own. There was no kind of organized effort coming out of Washington. Most of it was happening in the war theater, and intelligence was pretty much a hit and miss operation. But there were a lot of brave people that were part of that at the time. When the CIA was actually created by Harry Truman under the Security Act, for the first time, we put together an official intelligence agency, the Central Intelligence Agency. And it had the responsibility, obviously, for dealing with intelligence. But like every agency in government, it depends on leadership, depends on the quality of leadership. And sometimes there were those who led intelligence who thought that they could do things that, that weren't necessarily approved by either the Congress or, for that matter, even the president. And so intelligence has made its share of mistakes. Probably the worst mistake was the call on Iraq and the intelligence that somehow Iraq had weapons of mass destruction when they didn't. And it led to a war in Iraq. But our intelligence people did not have accurate intelligence on what was going on there. And you could also say that, to that extent, 9/11, the attack on 9/11, was a failure of intelligence to determine that there were those who were here who were training to fly airplanes into buildings here in the United States. And although there was some intelligence that there were people being trained, there was not a very good sharing of that intelligence between the different intelligence agencies. So intelligence has made mistakes, but it's also provided very good intelligence. I think the Cuban Missile Crisis, our intelligence was right on about what the Russians were trying to do. And we certainly helped President Kennedy in determining ultimately what strategy would be implemented against Russia. I think we were able to determine that that with the collapse of the Berlin Wall, that the Soviet Union would collapse, and that was important intelligence as well. And we were able, obviously, to be at the point of the spear when it came to the war on terrorism and the ability to determine what was happening there. Probably another failure was Vietnam. I think both intelligence and military capabilities failed to determine what would be effective in Vietnam, and that was a failing across the board. And obviously, this country paid a price for that failing. But we were able to put together our intelligence and military capabilities, and I think respond very effectively to the attack on 9/11, and protect our country. So intelligence, I have to tell you, probably like anything else, depends on good leadership. If leadership is there, dedicated to doing the right thing, following the law, intelligence can be a very important capability to try to help protect our national security. And I also have to say, you're in Milan. We could not have good intelligence without the help of our allies. We work very closely with our friends, whether it's in Europe, whether it's with Italy, and we share intelligence and we work together because we are democracies trying to make sure that we can protect our national security. And for that reason, I would really stress that one of the important things about intelligence today is the ability of the United States and our allies to work together. You can see that in Ukraine. I think Ukraine has been a success in terms of the ability to determine intelligence on what Russia was up to and what they were planning. And we continue to share intelligence with regards to the Russians that gives the Ukrainians the ability, because they have courageous fighters, to be able to use that intelligence in stopping the Russians. And they've done a very good job at that. So I think today intelligence is in a pretty good place, largely because we are working together. The United States and our allies, our NATO allies, very important unity in order to confront tyrants and autocrats around the world.
Okay, you mentioned Ukraine, and intelligence has an unusually public role in the Ukraine war. Do you think that this experience can go on in the future?
Well, I think it has been very effective. I mean, the ability to kind of present intelligence on what the Russians went up to when Putin was saying something very different. Putin was saying he was not going to invade the Ukraine. Putin was saying that that they were not going to conduct an invasion, and yet all of the intelligence showed that they were in fact preparing to invade Ukraine. And for intelligence to basically put that information out to the public and to the world, I think was very helpful in showing that Putin was lying and that he was trying to deceive the rest of the world. And the ability to provide that intelligence, to kind of know what the Russians were really up to, I think was a real message that intelligence can be extremely effective in not only helping once war begins, but in also making clear what our adversaries are up to, what they are planning to do, and sharing that information undercuts their ability to surprise their opponents. And that's very helpful. So I think intelligence has played a very critical role, particularly with regards to Ukraine. And hopefully we can continue to do that.
And a few years ago, Sir Alex Younger, then chief of the Secret Intelligence Services, said, even in an era of artificial intelligence, you need human intelligence. So where can human intelligence go from here?
Well, I'm a believer that you can't have good intelligence without having people on the ground and really understanding what's going on. Frankly, I think the fact that that everybody in some ways miscalculated on the capability of Russia to conduct this invasion. I mean, the Russians plus our own intelligence said that the Russians would invade, be able to take Kyiv, the capital, within a few days, and that the government of Ukraine would come down. And part of that was based on, I think, taking for granted information that we thought we had about Russia. I think it's very important to have human intelligence, because even though we have a lot of other technology, even though we have capabilities in space and in communications, having people on the ground actually observing what is happening is very important to the accuracy of intelligence. So I do not think that we are ever going to replace human intelligence. Human intelligence has to be maintained. When we were conducting operations in Pakistan against Al-Qaeda, we had a large number of agents on the ground, spies on the ground, who were confirming where our targets were and whether our targets were real, whether our targets were there, what our targets were. That all came from human intelligence. So I'm a believer that human intelligence is critical to our ability to get good intelligence.
I see. And let's talk about the future for the agency and in general. How do you see the main challenges for intelligence, for Western intelligence, and for the CIA?
I think the biggest challenge right now is the number of flashpoints that we're facing around the world. This is a dangerous world. And it isn't just the situation in Ukraine and the confrontation with Russia. We're also facing an adversary in China and the threat that China might try to take Taiwan or basically militarize the South China Sea. So China is an important intelligence target to be able to understand what exactly China is up to. North Korea developing nuclear weapons, conducting these missile tests. It's really important to understand what is going on within North Korea's centers of power, particularly Kim Jong-un. What is he doing? What's he up to? That intelligence is critical because North Korea is a very unpredictable adversary in today's world. We don't know what they're up to. We don't know what they're going to do. And I think we need to have better intelligence on what's going on in North Korea. Same thing is true for Iran. Iran is a country that promotes instability in the Middle East and elsewhere. And obviously they are at a point where they've been enriching nuclear fuel, and they could be within a few weeks of being able to put together a nuclear weapon. We need to know that. We need to know that. And whether or not Iran will be a threat, a nuclear threat to countries in that region. We need to get better intelligence on the Middle East. We've had a number of failed states in the Middle East: Syria, Libya, other countries that have collapsed and become breeding grounds for terrorism. What's going on? What's producing this? How do we try to develop better stability in the Middle East and understand the changes that are going on in different countries? And terrorism still remains a threat. Even though we've gotten Bin Laden, the reality is that terrorism has metastasized. It's become very different approaches. ISIS is an offshoot of Al Qaeda. Boko Haram in North Africa, Al Shabaab in Africa and North Africa as well. So terrorism remains a real threat to the Western world. Our ability to have intelligence on what is being planned, what's being developed, what kind of attacks are they considering, is critical to our security. And then add to that cyber attacks. We are in a world now where cyber is the battlefield of the future. Cyber can be used. If you have a sophisticated virus, you can deploy that virus and literally cripple another country. You can take down the electric grid system. You can take down the financial systems. You can take down the security systems. You can take down the water systems, transportation systems. You can paralyze a country. So because cyber attacks are on the increase, it's very important to try to get intelligence as to where those attacks are coming from, to try to better prepare ourselves. So when you look at that panoply of flashpoints, danger points in the world, it is critical for the CIA and for intelligence to be able to know what is going on with regards to each of these threats to our national security. That requires tremendous burden on the part of intelligence to be able to get the right intelligence, to be in a place where you actually know what is happening, accurate intelligence. And for that reason, I really think that having a strong intelligence will in many ways determine the future of our national security in the 21st century.
My last question is about democracy. And what role does an institution like the CIA play in a highly polarized context?
When you enter the headquarters at CIA at Langley, on the right-hand side, there are a number of stars on the wall that represent those who've given their life for intelligence. And on the left-hand side, there is a statement from the Bible that says, "And the truth shall set you free." I think the most important responsibility for intelligence in a polarized world and a polarized country is to tell the truth, to tell the truth. And that's not always easy to do. We've had presidents who don't like to hear the truth. We've had leaders who don't like to hear the truth. But the responsibility of intelligence is to tell the truth. What's actually happening? Where are those threats? What are the possibilities of what our adversaries can do to the United States and for that matter, to the world? So I think the greatest weapon we have to confront polarization is telling the truth, because there are those who think they can lie and say whatever they want, and that somehow no one is going to question what they say or what they're trying to do in deceiving people. So I think intelligence, if it follows that biblical saying, and the truth shall set you free, the most important responsibility that intelligence has is to speak truth to power. And if intelligence can do that, then I think ultimately we will find our path in the 21st century.
Thank you, Secretary Panetta. Thanks a lot for your time.